Hello everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm in Koh Phangan, Thailand. It's a bit sunny if you're watching this on YouTube. Image is a bit blown out, but I wanted to film this here because it is a pretty cool location. And for this second episode of Season 3, the comeback season of the Chris the Freelancer podcast, I wanted to share my personal story of how I came to be location independent. So you guys might see my photos or travel videos on Instagram and be wondering, how does this guy do it? I mean, travel is a great way to showcase how I'm utilizing the fact that I earn a location independent income. But as we've all experienced over the last few years with COVID, you can use location independence in a variety of ways. Most notably recently to get out of a bad situation. I mean, it didn't apply to me in Australia because there was a literal travel ban. I couldn't leave the country without a very good reason. But for most people, if you were location independent, you could go somewhere where there's less restrictions, where there's less cases. There's so many benefits to being location independent, especially now, that governments, I don't want this podcast to get political, but, I watch a lot of kind of doomsday stuff about the dark ages coming, and having location independence is a way to kind of avoid that stuff to a certain extent as well. Location independence is personally super important to me. So hopefully this video and audio inspires you and helps you with your own freedom goals. Okay, so rather than just tell you what I do right now, which could be covered in, one sentence. Number one, you might not understand what I'm saying. And number two, it doesn't kind of give you the lessons. So I want to kind of cover the backstory. And I think that's really where the value is going to be in this podcast episode. And you can actually learn something from my experience. So my story is, if you've been following the channel for a while, you would have heard me talk about a lot of this stuff. But I was initially inspired by the travel lifestyle, by living abroad, being an expat. And I thought that, this was back in 2014, 2015. I thought that, I could do the whole, working holiday thing, or I could, have a career. The two were at opposite ends. But then when I found out about this idea of digital nomads, which are people that, work a remote job or have a remote business and travel the world, I was totally inspired, and that is what set me off on the career change I went on. I was studying a degree in accounting and then quickly switched to web development, to front-end web development as my location independent career, which, by the way, is a great option. And then I kind of rushed into the digital nomad lifestyle, if I'm being honest. So I kind of only gave myself a year to kind of get set up. I definitely was making money from web development within a few months even. I got my first job within a few months. So it definitely moved quick. But in terms of having consistent, stable, location-independent income, I probably needed to spend an extra year working on my career first, building up experience, getting some really good contracts, or getting a job where I kind of had a good company on my resume, which I'll get to. That came later in my experience, which I'll get to in a little bit. But I have no regrets because I had a ton of great experiences. I mean, if you've listened to this podcast before in the previous seasons, or you've watched my YouTube videos or seen my photos, you can see that I had all these crazy cool travel experiences. And so I don't regret it for a second. But in 2019, I made the decision to leave it all behind, come home, and essentially get my shit together. So what I did was I actually took a job at a Shopify Plus partner agency. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted to learn the skill of translating my front-end web development skills specifically into Shopify. I felt like that was an underserviced niche. And it as predicted, it was an underserviced niche, and it was a great idea to work for this company. Not only did I make money, learnt on the job, and had experience and, that something to put on my resume. yeah, I mean, those were all pluses. It allowed me to eventually leave that job, start a freelance career, and pass on this knowledge to other people through my Skillshare channel and my YouTube channel. So I got that job. After about 10 months, I left it, got some clients, and started traveling again. Around that time, my Skillshare channel started to pick up steam as well. So I started teaching this stuff on Skillshare. And when I realized that there wasn't a lot of information on Shopify theme development, in fact, I learned this pretty early on, given that I started looking for resources back in the day and couldn't find any. I decided to start a YouTube channel where I talked about that specific area of web development. So I did that, and started traveling again at the start of 2020. Now, as you know, 2020 was the start of the pandemic as well, so it was terrible timing. I mean, it was good timing for me. I was on my own personal timeline, but bad timing in terms of, what was happening to the world. And I was stuck in Australia for 2 years. Now, I'm not going to lie, apart from the fact that Australia, stopped us from leaving, it was a pretty good lifestyle there. And I was living a pretty good lifestyle in Australia as best as I could imagine living in that sort of environment. And the final thing I started was I used to get questions a lot on my Skillshare channel and my YouTube channel that were a bit more involved. So I decided to create a mastermind community for Shopify theme developers. So that's currently on Patreon, but I'm looking at moving it. So yeah, just to cover off everything, today I make enough money from teaching web development to cover my lifestyle. And so it's interesting, the Skillshare business, the channel that I started, and the YouTube channel, and I guess that teaching business was a side hustle at first, but that then switched into my main hustle, and now client work is more of my side hustle. So that's pretty cool. All right, so let's recap. Here are some of the key takeaways I want to give to you guys so that you can become location independent as well if you want to. So the first step is you got to choose something that you can start making money right away from your computer. I mean, you could choose something that is going to take you years to get into. That's always an option. So for instance, I met a guy who was an accountant who was working remotely in Thailand. The problem with that, and I know this firsthand because, my degree is in accounting, it's something that you have to spend years working on. Typically, I mean, this might change in future, but typically you have to spend years building up your career first and then have to get in a position of power in order to offer accounting services remotely. I mean, this is a Australian, probably American focus. I don't know what the laws and the requirements are for the accounting profession where you are. Maybe you could start like a bookkeeping side hustle. But yeah, that's something to be aware of. With web development, you can start learning the skill, start charging clients straight away, and it doesn't take years of experience as a prerequisite in order to be location independent. The next key takeaway, I think, from my story is gaining real-world experience. So I went into that Shopify Plus partner agency in 2019, and that was such a win-win for me. Obviously, I had to work hard. There was stress. It was a bit of a sacrifice, but it was so worth it in the long run. To give you another example, other than my own example, I have a friend, Javier, who spent years building up his career in design. He worked for some major companies, and because he's got those major companies and all of those credentials on his resume, he's able to get crazy good contracts. They're not necessarily location independent, but he can take these flexible contracts and then once he's finished with them, move on and start traveling again, make really good money. The third takeaway I see from my story is to utilize your unique skill set. So web development isn't a unique skill set of mine, I would say. Like, plenty of people know how to code websites, But what I did was I combined my ability to speak on camera, to make videos, and to explain things, and I combined that with my web development knowledge. And so then I was able to create the Skillshare channel and the YouTube channel. And I hope I don't sound like I'm bragging here when I say that, I've got a knack for that sort of stuff. So that would be another piece of advice for you guys, is look at your unique skill set. Don't just buy whatever course people are selling. Look at if it's something that you want to do long term, because trust me, setting yourself up for the long term and reaping the benefits later, it's worth waiting and making that sacrifice. And finally, take opportunities when opportunities arise. That niche. When I started my Chris the Freelancer YouTube channel initially, I jumped on an opportunity to talk about the digital nomad lifestyle where not many people were talking about it at the time. And so I filled the gap. I made the channel that I wish existed at the time. And, that ended up garnering quite a bit of traction and gained an audience from it. And then similarly, I realized that Shopify theme development wasn't something that was talked about often. So I created a YouTube channel about that, and now if you type in Shopify theme development into YouTube, of course this could change at any point, but right now my stuff is very search engine optimized, and I'm, attracting new people looking to learn that stuff at every opportunity that my videos are online for. So those are the 4 takeaways from my personal story. I have more resources on my website if you want to learn more about this stuff. All of this stuff is available for free. So you just go to christhefreelancer.com/blog/remote work, and that will filter my blog by the category of remote work. And I've got my article on how to be a digital nomad, different digital nomad job ideas, career ideas, how I stay productive. So you can learn from me there. And if you're new here, I just started this podcast up again, so be sure to subscribe. There's more people arriving now at this pool that I've decided to record this podcast from, so I'll end it there. But thanks for watching. Subscribe, and I'll see you on the next podcast. Bye.